Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Lincoln on this Sunday morning. My name is the Reverend Oscar Sinclair. Each week since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic in March of 2020, our congregation has gathered together at least twice. On Thursday night, when we tend to our community and each other directly on Zoom, and on this service, on Sunday morning broadcast on YouTube. Sunday morning, whether in person or on YouTube, is a chance to proclaim who we are and what we are about, throwing open the doors of the congregation and proclaiming the radical love and welcome that is at the heart of our shared faith. The Unitarian Church of Lincoln, we say, aspires to be a loving community, uniting reason with spiritual exploration to transform ourselves and the world. And right now, this fall, in this year when so much is uncertain, we know that transformation is necessary. This is the place. This is the time. Who will we be? How will we be? In a time of anxiety and pandemic and fear, what are we called to be as a community? This is, as Reverend Susan Frederick Gray puts it, no time for a casual faith. And this right here, right now, is where we practice. And as Susan Frederick Gray puts it, this is no time to go it alone. And so this, right here, right now, is where we practice together. So take a moment as we begin. Be present right here, right now. Let go of what you've carried here. Set aside what will come later. Just be right here, together. There is work to be done. Let's be about it. We light our chalice every Sunday morning, every time that we gather, to mark the warmth of community and the fire of commitment, the light of truth. And on a day when we are recognizing those who have gone before, who we loved and who are no longer with us, and in a week where we're not quite sure what's going to happen next, for our chalice lighting, we have this piece of music by Abigail and Sean Benson, who remind us that even in the midst of all of this, we keep going on. I'll start the music and we'll light our chalice.
Keep going on song. This is a keep going on song. This is a keep going on song. I am Abigail, and this is Sean, and we're so glad that you've turned this on and welcomed us into your home, and you are welcome into our home. We're in Dayton, Ohio. In Sean's parents' house.
My parents' house.
Sean's parents' house. We were in Louisville when the shit hit, and we packed our 3-year-old into a car. We drove kind of far. We drove here, and we've been so lucky and blessed to be safely here. And we thought we'd be here for like 10 days. Tops.
What did we know?
What did we know?
What
What did we know? We thought we knew a lot. We thought we knew a lot. Woo! Keep going on song. This is a keep going on song. This is a keep going on song. And we've been mostly healthy. We've been okay. Are you okay? Are you all right? Are you okay? Are you all right? Are you okay? I hope your body is whole tonight. And if your heart is breaking, I hope it's breaking open. And if your breath is shaking, I hope it's shaking through. And then I hope that you've watched a lot of really great television, like a lot of it. And I hope that you find a hand lotion that actually makes your skin feel better. And I hope that you have enough to eat. I hope you're getting enough sleep, and I hope you have enough good company or enough good memory to last you a long time. Keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. We sing the keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. Let's bring some joy into the room, why not? We can try it, we can try it. Or some rage, and some grief and relief. Oh, I hope my rage, I pray my rage is a fire that cleans my mind out and makes me ready to listen. I pray my pain is a river that flows to the ocean that connects my pain to yours. And I pray my happiness is like pollen that flies to you and pollinates your joy. Oh boy, is that possible? I don't know. We are making this up as we go. We have to make it up as we go. The keep going song, the keep going song. Oh, we're making it up. We're making it up as we go. Keep going, keep going on. Keep going on song. And I pray that when we meet again, that the world has changed into the world that we are imagining now together. And I pray that the world has become the world that we're planting inside of ourselves for each other and for our ancestors and for our kids. Ooh, and we're gonna start. This is a rough beginning. That's all I've got is a rough beginning to offer you. We're gonna start by singing some songs in this tiny space together. We're just gonna sing some songs for you, and we hope that when you hear them, you will feel a little bit less alone, and we will feel a little bit less alone in the work and in the hurt, and we will be together tonight somehow, whenever this is, wherever this is. We will be together tonight for the keep going on. Keep going on song. This is a keep going on. Keep going on song.
Hello. Our story today is called Ida Always, and it's by Karen Levis and Charles Santoso. Gus lived in a big park in the middle of an even bigger city. Buildings grew around him and shifted the shape of the sky. Zookeepers poked in and out. Visitors came and went. But every morning, when keys clicked and shoes clacked, Gus crawled out of his cave and spent his day with Ida. Ida was right there, always. When Gus tossed the ball, Ida was there to catch it. When Gus splashed water, Ida was there to splash him right back. They chased and raced until school bells rang. Then the two friends flopped onto their favorite rock while the city pulsed around them. I wish we could see it, Gus sighed. You don't have to see it to feel it, said Ida. Listen. They heard buses groan, trucks rumble, police whistle, taxis honk, pigeons coo, people say, hey, wait, yo, hello, and children laugh. That's the city's heartbeat, said Ida. It's right here with us, always. When the sky grew dark, Gus and Ida waved goodnight and crawled off to their caves. With the subways humming underground, they added their snores to the sounds of their city. Every day was always the same, until one morning, when keys clicked and shoes clacked, Gus crawled out. But Ida wasn't there. Gus lumbered to Ida's cave. He heard her breathing, coughing, snoring, sleeping. He sat in their sunniest spot and waited. The coffee carts ground their beans, and the squirrels squabbled over crumbs. Visitors shuffled in, keepers bustled about. Ida had never slept so late. Snow monkeys and taxicabs screeched. Ice cream trucks jingled. Still, Ida didn't come. Keeper Sonia came instead. Sonia told Gus that Ida was very sick. Usually there's a way to make a sick bear better, but this time was different. Ida wouldn't hurt, but she would get tired and too weak to swim and play. Then one day, when her body stopped working, Ida would die. Sonia's voice was soft. But the words felt rough to Gus. His insides churned, his chin shook, the sky rumbled. Gus rushed to his friend. "Don't go," he growled. "Don't go, don't go, don't." Ida growled right back. Together they stomped and snarled. Their growls turned into howls, so loud they filled up the zoo, rising higher than skyscrapers, scaring pigeons, surging toward stars. And then they stopped. Two friends folded into one shadow and slumped quietly on the rocks. Two bare noses sniffled, two bare breaths panted, two bare hearts echoed each other's beat. A plane roared overhead. Gus and Ida wondered where it was going. They wondered where Ida was going, too. They wondered and guessed and imagined as they whispered nose to nose. "Wherever I go," said Ida, "I bet I'll always smell your fishy breath." That made Gus smile. He wasn't sure if he should, but Ida was giggling too, and they let their laughs bounce back and forth between them. From then on, Ida spent most days in her cave. She slept a lot, but she didn't hurt. The keepers took good care of her. And Gus helped. He gathered her favorite toys and fishy treats. He brought her visitors' notes. There were growling days and laughing days and days that mixed them up. Sometimes Ida needed a moment alone. Sometimes Gus did too. But at the end of each day, Gus always told Ida, "I'll always miss you." And Ida always told Gus, "I'll miss you too." They would cuddle until the sky grew dark and the lamps of the city clicked on. They would wave goodnight 1,000 times, then wave a few times more. Then one sunny day, when Gus smoothed her fur, Ida curled into quiet. Her eyes fluttered shut, and they didn't open anymore. Gus pressed one last pat into Ida's paw. The paper shared the news. The city cried. For days, the zoo was filled with goodbyes. Now, when keys click and shoes clack, Gus crawls out of his cave knowing Ida won't be there. He dives and swims alone, and he eats his lunch with Sonia. They roll Ida's favorite yellow ball. Some days, Gus forgets. He looks for Ida on the rock in her cave behind the waterfall. When he remembers she isn't there, he rests in the shadows. But even in the shadows, the sounds of the city reach him. He hears buses groan, trucks rumble, police whistle, taxis honk, pigeons coo, people say, "Hey, wait, yo, hello," and children laugh. Gus smiles. He steps into the spot where Ida liked to soak in the sun. He listens to their city pulsing around him. He remembers that Ida said, "You don't have to see it to feel it." The sidewalks tap and the streets hum. Gus's heart beats. And Ida is right there. Always. And that is the end of our story.
Wondrous by Sarah Freeley. I'm driving home from school when the radio talk turns to E.B. White, his birthday, and I exit the here and now of the freeway at rush hour, travel back into the past, where my mother is reading to my sister and me the part about Charlotte laying her eggs and dying. And though this is the 5th time Charlotte has died, My mother is crying again, and we're laughing at her because we know nothing of loss and its sad math. How every subtraction is exponential, how each grief multiplies the one preceding it. How the author tried 17 times to record the words "she died alone" without crying. 17 takes and a short walk, during which he called himself ridiculous, a grown man crying for a spider he'd spun out of the silk thread of invention. Wondrous how those words could come back and make him cry. And yes, wondrous to hear my mother's voice 10 years after the day she died. The catch, the rasp, the gathering up before she could say to us, "I'm okay."
Alle Seelen by Herman von Grimm, translated by Rita Dove. All Souls Day. Place the fragrant heather on the table, the season's last red asters on the tray, and let us sit and talk of love again, as we did in May. Give me your hand, I'll squeeze it secretly, though I won't care what others say. Just give me one of your sweet looks, as you did in May. Now every grave's a fresh bouquet of blossoms. Each year the dead are granted one free day. Come to me so I can hold you close, as I did, oh, once in May.
My life goes on in endless song of prophet's lamentation. I hear the real, the far-off hymn that hears a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars, I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close, songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm. Hold to that rock I'm clinging. Its love that is an endless. How can I keep from singing? The tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing. When friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are bringing. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
The first time I accompanied a family whose loved one was dying, I was a 29-year-old chaplain on his first overnight on-call shift at the hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. The circumstances that night were hard. I was called to the room when it was clear that this woman, who was in her early 40s, would not live through the night. She had a genetic disease that had been terminal for years, but it was still sooner than anyone, certainly anyone in her family, wanted to say goodbye. "We're glad you're here, chaplain," they said. "Will you pray with us?" A hospital in North Carolina is not a Unitarian Universalist church in Lincoln, Nebraska. Prayers I had learned in my short time there weren't prayers unless they started with scripture, and so I sat in that hospital room and tried to come up with some scripture, some words of comfort to offer this family who there were no words for what they were going through. For now we see but through a glass darkly, the Apostle Paul wrote. But then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then shall I know fully, even as I am fully known. In 3 paragraphs in 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul writes one of the most complex pieces of theology and poetry in Scripture. It's often a cliched reading at weddings: love is patient, love is kind, all of those things. But listen to it on this day when we gather to remember those who we loved and who are no longer with us. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. What do we make of this in our tradition, in this church? Paul, at least in part, is describing a kind of heaven. There are certain implicit references to an afterlife in this passage, and that's a little complicated for us. At the end of almost 30 memorial services I've spoken at since coming to Lincoln, at each one I've said some variant of this: Unitarian Universalism makes no claim on what happens after death. The answer to that question lies with each of us and our conception of the divine. And so at the end of life, our services are not about what happens next. They are about telling the story of a person who lived, who we loved, and who is no longer here. Because our faith makes 2 big claims: that each person is of almost infinite worth, and that we are all interconnected. So here, at the end of a life, we gather to mark the departure of one that we loved, to recognize that their life touched ours, and to tell their story. We gather to tell stories. Because here's the truth in the words Paul wrote so long ago: at the end of a life well lived, the extraneous drops away. Prophecies cease. Tongues are still, knowledge passes away, but love endures. At the end, these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. I mean what I say at funerals. We don't, as a church, make any claim on the afterlife. But that's also not the whole story. I have seen dozens, maybe hundreds of times now, love endure after death. Yes, people die. The great tension of the human condition is to know that we are alive and someday we will not be. That the people we love are alive, and someday they will not be. But love continues on every single time. It morphs and becomes something else, something caught up in memory and loss. But the love that ties us together in life does not break at death. Did someone say there would be an end? An end, oh, an end to love and mourning, May Sarton writes. Such voices speak when sleep and waking blend. The cold, bleak voices of the early morning when all the birds are dumb in dark November. Remember and forget, forget, remember. And after the false night, warm, true voices wake, voices of the dead that touch the cold living. Through the pale sunlight once more gravely speak, tell me again, while the last leaves are falling. Dear child, what has been once so interwoven cannot be raveled, nor the gift ungiven. Now the dead move through us all, still glowing, mother and child, lover and lover mated, are wound and bound together and in flowing. What has been plated cannot be unplated. Only the strands grow richer with each loss, and memory makes kings and queens of us. Dark into light, light into darkness spin, when all the birds have flown to some real haven. We who find shelter in the warmth within listen and feel new cherished, new forgiven. As the lost human voices speak through us and blend our complex love, our mourning without end. What has been plated cannot be unplated. We say some version of this every week as part of our worship service. Each week, we share the joys and sorrows of our lives with the broader community. We cannot untie our lives from each other. We do this together because joy and sorrow, mourning and love are so tightly wound in each individual life and the life of a community. We mourn for what we have loved, for what we might have loved. And we love so often knowing that nothing endures eternally, except maybe the love itself. And so each week we invite members, while a piece of music plays, to write the names of people they are holding in joy or sorrow this week, or their own names. This week we asked our members to send in names and pictures of the loved ones they are grieving this year. The names and faces of love that endures. And it is not a complete list. But I hope it captures some of the universality both of love and loss. Will you join me in singing our next hymn, Comfort Me?
Speak
When I was in 6th grade, we lived near the greatest sledding hill I have ever seen. Charlie's Dump, as it was called, was an old landfill, and for environmental reasons, it had been emptied out and cleaned. What was left was the sort of photo negative of a hill, 4 slopes in the shape of a square going down from street level, and then joining in a central area. The Sunken Gardens here in Lincoln was, I believe, made the same way. It was an exhilarating place to go sledding, with excited kids sliding down all 4 slopes into a single Thunderdome-like central area. I'm amazed that there weren't more injuries from sledders on different sides of Charlie's Dump colliding head-on at the bottom of the hill. This week feels a bit like sledding at Charlie's Dump. There are a whole lot of really fast-moving pieces, some exciting, some terrifying, all converging on a single location. Our congregation's pledge drive is over. A few of us will meet tomorrow to get a sense of what that means for our 2021 budget. Coronavirus cases are increasing rapidly in Lincoln and around the world. And at least in my family, we're starting to think about what a possible lockdown might look like. And, oh yeah, we're going to start counting votes for an election of some consequence in about 44 hours. So can we pause, just for a moment? I know this is harder online than if we were in the sanctuary away from distractions, but as best you can, put down the things you're carrying. Set your phone aside for just 5 minutes. The news will be the same when you pick it back up as it is now. Unclench your jaw. Feel where your body is holding tension and consciously let it go. For me, it's always my shoulders and my back. I have to intentionally relax just a few times a day. If you're a parent and are currently 40 minutes into trying to get your kids to sit still for worship, good luck. And know that I pre-record this, so Stacy and I are probably there as well right now. But however you do it for a moment, just breathe. This is a level of intensity of feeling and events that we rarely grapple with. It is really hard out there right now. But that's okay, because this is a place where we do hard things. A place where we hold hard things up and look at them, not letting grief lay unprocessed. We are not content in this place with what Victoria Safford calls the cheerful, flimsy garden gate of everything's gonna be all right. One of the reasons we mark All Souls each year is because this is a place where we can be honest about life. To be a human being is to know 2 things, that we are alive and that we will not always be. To be honest about that, to place it on the table and look at it together, that is a bold thing that churches do. Because this is in a culture that so often ignores death. Sometimes this is passive, an action movie in which a character dies and the other characters mourn for a 45-second scene and then everything goes on. And sometimes it's active, products and activities that promise youth and by extension delay death ad infinitum. And sometimes it's political, where a candidate for public office, despite all evidence for the contrary, despite over 200,000 people gone, says we're turning the corner on a pandemic. This is a place where we are honest about hard things, where we place them on the table and look at them together. Since March, 45 people in Lancaster County have died of COVID-19. That's as of the day I'm recording this. I assume it will be higher by Sunday. 629 Nebraskans, 228,000 Americans, 1.18 million people around the world. And so a day where we remember those who are no longer with us feels unsettled, at least for me. One of the difficult truths of this pandemic is that it has cut off the rituals of loss. Far, far too many of those 200,000 died without someone holding their hand. Too many have died alone. Too many families have been unable to gather in person to mourn, to share stories, to laugh, to grieve, to toast a life well lived. On this place, we've held memorials on Zoom. I've gathered with families here and families on the screen behind me. I'm proud of how this congregation has done that. But I know that we lose something essential when we don't mourn together in person. This is a hard, hard time. We see through a glass darkly. I don't, know what the next weeks and months will hold. I worry that this will be a long, cold winter before a vaccine becomes widely available. But the Apostle Paul reminds us love endures. Where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. But love endures. The work of the church is to remember and to be a place of love in the world. And that will be true next Sunday. Whatever happens on Tuesday and in the next week, whatever happens a generation from now, it will be true. Love endures, and we tell stories. Be at peace, beloveds, and amen.
Each week, we take up a collection. We pass the plate to support the work of our church, whether we're online or in person. If you would like to give a contribution today, you have several options. You can send a check to Unitarian Church of Lincoln, 6300 A Street, Lincoln, Nebraska, 68510, and just write Sunday Plate in the memo line, if you will. If you have a Realm account, our online database, you can give there quite easily. I think the very easiest way, though, is if you give through text giving. All you do is text UC Lincoln and your amount to 73256. And the prompts that you get will walk you through the process from there. Thanks for considering giving a contribution today.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. Oh, for each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth, keepers of faith, makers of peace, and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage, fathers of time, daughters of dust, and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy, brothers of love, lovers of life, and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are one. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings, and we are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage.
That concludes our service for Sunday, November 1st, 2020. When we meet again next Sunday, the world will likely be different than it is now. But some things won't be particularly different. The pieces of this church that are important will still be here. The commitments that we have to justice in the world will still be here. On Monday, we will proclaim that democracy is important and that Black Lives Matter, and next Sunday we will proclaim that democracy is important and that Black Lives Matter. Until then, we'll be in contact each day over the next week. Watch your e-blasts, watch the daily updates that we send out. Be at peace, beloveds. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.